Awake living into uncharted territory together, accelerating your wellness path, plus your interconnectivity at the same time. It's not your grandma's or your Veda, but it kind of is. It's the Yogahealer Real Life Show with Kate Tillman.
Hello, it's Kate with Yogahealer.com and welcome back to the podcast. Today I'm with Summer McStravick of daydreaming.com. And what Summer wants to know is, are you more of an action-oriented person or are you more of a daydreamer? She unpacks the art of conscious daydreaming, which she calls flow dreaming, to tap into a deeper trust and flow with the universe that created us. What we explore today is how to use this conscious daydreaming to access higher states of ease and flow. And I've got to say, she's totally dead on. And it's neat to see how she's combining what I see as the tantric teaching of following Shakti and how she's bringing it into a very non-dual experience. We'll be right back with Summer McStravick of daydreaming.com. Do you want to make smarter choices faster every day? Then do the Values Workshop. You can improve your family relationships as a parent, as a sibling, as a grown child. You can step into your next level of impact as an influencer or a leader. Once you've done your values, you can actually lead and train to your values. But if you haven't done your values, you can't. And that is why I am offering you the free Values Workshop. I don't know why I'm offering it for free. Maybe because I'm just really want to see us evolve as a society, as a global partnership. So if you want to take advantage of this, go to yogahealer.com/values-workshop, VALUES-workshop, WORKSHOP. I have no idea how long I'm going to allow this to go for free. I also have some good coaching on the other side of the Values Workshop. So once you've figured out the values, you can actually start to lead and train even your family members to your family values. So you can do this for yourself. You can do this for your company. You can do this for your family. Go to yogahealer.com/values-workshop. And again, I have no idea how long I'm going to let you do this for free, but for now it is. So do it and share it with your friends, with your family, so that everyone can just awaken to the power of their own values and making better choices in line with their own values. Namaste. Hello, everyone. I'm here today with Summer McStravick, and in her website is flowdreaming.com. You've got such an interesting background, Summer, and I have a lot that I want to dive into with you. Let's just first start talking about this whole sense of flow and dreaming and how that came to be basically your main platform and message.
Yeah. Well, it was an accident, but we know there's not really accidents, but I've been railroaded into it. Let's put it that way in my life. In 2004, I think it was, I wrote a book called Flow Dreaming, and I was working at Hay House at the time. That's Louise Hay's, publishing company. And it was a fluke that the book was written in the first place. I had never believed anybody else would be interested in what I did and how I thought and how I worked with life and the universe, but it was basically handed to me. And that's really where things started getting out to, I ran their new media division. So I was in charge of all their podcasts, all their radio stations, Hay House Radio. You were asking about that. So there's a little background. So it just happened then that I had a beautiful way of talking to people every week about how I thought. Again, I had no idea anybody would appreciate this. I mean, I'm up against, not against, but I'm the little one, and I'm here with Wayne Dyer and Louise Hay and Abraham Hicks and Doreen Virtue and all these people. And just thinking, okay, well, if people want to listen, they can listen. If they don't, then they can listen to somebody else. And I think it was just sort of the universe's way of saying, get over yourself, do what you have to do. Don't make us have wasted our efforts on you. And finally, I got the message and said, okay, you haven't wasted your efforts on me. I will teach people flow dreaming, and I will teach them about flow, and I will teach them about consciousness, and I will step up and do it. But it was a hard road to tug me up into.
Yeah. I mean, what I hear in that is like just past beliefs about how things should be and how things should go. And then the reality of like, oh, wow, look at the people I'm hanging out with and working with and working for. And there's that sort of carpe diem of like, oh, this is actually how things work.
Yeah, yeah. And also the recognition that you kind of have to jump up levels in your mind from time to time.
Yes.
And if you don't do it, you're going to be continually pushed into more uncomfortable situations until you do. I had never wanted to be on the radio. I'd never wanted to, be on all these shows, or I had never had a desire. I was a very private person. And when you have to talk to people for hours and hours a day, as you do, you know this, you end up telling people a lot about yourself, and your privacy just kind of, disappears, and you realize, what am I protecting?
Yeah. 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 To me, that this is such a huge part of where the leading edge of people in self-development are going with collaborative leadership and collaborative intelligence, is we realize that we don't need to protect, that we
Yeah.
can trust. And I know, I mean, it's great that Brené Brown made vulnerability hip. I mean, massive bow to her for that, right? But it's like, that's
Yeah.
a prerequisite to
Mhm.
a lot of the next level of things that many of us are wanting to experience.
Yes. Yeah. And, speaking of collaboration and, all the different voices, I really feel that a lot of the things that we teach, yoga teaches, I teach, it's like singing, everybody can sing the same song, right? It's all the same song, essentially. It's just all these different voices. So I'm the soprano and you're the tenor. And which voice do you prefer to listen to? Which one gets through to you? Which one makes your heart open? Which one reaches you? And of course, there's variations. Everybody's got variations on their favorite song. I sing all the words wrong on my song. So, but yeah, that's something I realized over time.
So let's go to dreaming and how important dreaming is, and how, I mean, one of the things I know from, we just ran this big dream campaign, and my coaching team is talking to a lot of people who filled out an application to talk about their dreams and to into unearthing their dreams. And what I'm hearing back from my coaching teams is like, these are incredibly powerful conversations, because often the person hasn't had this conversation. Like, they haven't had it with themselves. They haven't had it out loud. They haven't had it with another person. So tell me a little bit about why dreaming is such a huge part of your message and your platform and your teaching.
Okay. So I'm going to take an unconventional approach. Flow dreaming is a combination. It's a technique at heart, but it's also a philosophy, a way of looking at the world. And the flow aspect of it is a realization that we live in a continuous flow of life and growth. And you can't stop it. Time is going forwards, not backwards. We are expanding and adding to ourselves every single day. We are not falling apart and decreasing ourselves. So you have this forward momentum in your life. And like most things in our natural universe, there's a kind of ease to it, right? An ease or a flow to it. And, like the earth is traveling around the sun, there's no friction, there's no resistance. If we grow from birth to death, there's no friction or resistance. It just happens. So I kind of go into that understanding that there is a natural road that is frictionless, that is, it doesn't have any resistance. That is you fully in your expansion, in your growth. If all the other pieces of restriction and so forth can be taken away, it's there for you. It's always there. So you couple that with two other things, and this becomes part of the technique. One is guided daydreaming. So I don't do night dreaming. I talk about conscious daydreaming, where I feel we're all born with the gift of being able to sync up with non-physical just instantly. I think if you practice it, and you can get a lot better at it, but it's born into you.
Yeah. And
so when you're consciously daydreaming, think about it. You lose track of time. You lose track of where you're at. I have driven home so many times and said, I hope I stopped at all those stoplights, because I don't remember any of that. So you're already entering a kind of altered state. Where are you going and why are you doing this? Why are you disconnecting and moving into a timeless state multiple times a day? So I thought, okay, what if I use daydreaming to go into this state of flow or ease? And then when I'm there, what do I do? And that's when I began communicating. And that's where I use my heart and I use emotion, because I think emotion is the universal language. And what you feel is sort of, it's 1,000 words in one feeling. So I feel, I emote, and I create in that flow state, in that non-physical state, using flow dreaming. But it really, to go back to your question about dreaming, it opened up a lot of people to realize that daydreaming, you don't have to be ashamed of it. It's your God-given gift. It's how you connect. You're supposed to be sinking in, like an email server, checking for email multiple times a day. That's what we're doing constantly. So instead of doing it just without thought, I say spend 10, 15 minutes a day connecting in with consciousness and go ahead and have a conversation. Have a conversation with source, with flow, with your future, with your greater self, whatever, and emote, and therefore you're creating. That's
beautiful.
it in a nutshell. I want to keep it kind of short.
Yeah. And I love the parallels in the Vedic system of inquiry practice of just taking that time of asking a question and going more into an I thou or second person dialogue with whatever you want to call it, the source of intuition or inspiration or the divine or the great beyond or the voice of evolution or whatnot. And to me, that container that you're creating and like carve out the time and the space. I know for me, the discipline of that, like to actually discipline myself out of doing mode that's really where the traction is. So how, and I can hear a lot of my students and my course members and whatnot saying like, oh, that's not hard. Like I naturally do this all the time. And so are there different types, like some people that are like really sort of the more cloud nine, really like spend a lot of time daydreaming. And then people like me, the more like type A, go, who have to actually like put it on our schedule to sit down and daydream.
Yeah. That's the irony of why I got involved in flow, because I was the ultimate controller, right? And we always get what we need. And there's another term that I use for the process. I call it pre-action. So most of the time we spend our lives in reaction. We're always reacting to something that just happened. I'm reacting to you because you asked me a question, because we had set up this interview. And if you want to be someone who is co-creating, who is manifesting, you have to get out of reaction and you have to get into pre-action. Pre-action is that sense of, I'm going to feel what it is that will happen next to me. Instead of reacting to what already occurred, I'm pre-acting to what is yet to occur. So to go to your question of if you are a person who is action-oriented versus a person who is pre-action-oriented. So I think most people fall somewhere along that scale. And I am naturally action-oriented. If you tell me to do something, do. I've got to-do lists scattered all over my, it's so easy for me.
Yeah.
But to get me into flow, to get me into pre-action where I pull back and I do the softer form of creation, right? The other, the non-physical form, I have to remind myself to do it. Other people are always there all the time. And they're like, oh, life is good. I just feel things and they happen. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't follow through. You had already done that. You don't just like taking it and just ran with that. And they're like, oh, another thing will come to me. And I'm like, I know, because you keep creating it, but you're not doing anything.
Right. Yeah.
So you got to find that little balance. It's the teeter-totter, sometimes I call it.
Yeah. And so for the more action oriented, do you find scheduling? I mean, because that's what I in listening to this, I mean, I know for me and a lot of this fits into my strategic planning. When I do strategic planning, it's very daydreamy oriented. It's very let go and big open pad of paper, just feeling, sitting, intuiting, writing in the middle or drawing. And, but it has to be on my schedule or I blow it off. And even sometimes when it's on my schedule, I still blow it off. And then I kind of catch up. But I also, so there's that, but then I also noticed like I'm very athletic and I ride my bike a lot. And now that it's summer and I surf a lot in winter, and that's when I really let go. Like if I'm in some sort of like conscious, like where I'm like problem solving, I just say stop. Yeah, like that line of thinking is not where the answers are.
No, and so when you're doing a repetitive activity like that, washing dishes, bike riding, on your treadmill, taking a shower, taking a walk. These are all times when people naturally release in the daydream. It's when you naturally go there. So you're naturally going there on your bike. You could be opening all the way and just letting those freeform associations happen, letting yourself connect into flow, connect into source, getting that connection really rich and right. But because you're still in that work frame of mind or that problem solving frame of mind, the mind is still keeping you on track of, we must solve this. It's in my experience, it's far more productive to just release into that space and sometimes it can feel hard because you're like, there's no payoff. There's no immediate payoff. What if I don't get it? And action, you always know there's going to be a payoff. But when you just release into that co-creative space, you don't know if there will. But for me in flow dreaming, there is a payoff because, I operate from this idea that whatever you're feeling or experiencing, you're actually making. So if I'm experiencing 5 minutes of intense gratitude or of intense future programming for something, that I want to make me happy, I have just taken 5 minutes of my life and made something of it. I've now felt that. It's in me. It's there. That's my payoff. Whether or not it even ever affects the future is one thing, but I know it's just restructured a little piece of me with a little chunk of that feeling.
Yeah.
So I get payoff that way.
Yeah, and you reset your nervous system, right? Whereas it's like if someone's in like some scaric mode of just in a deep repetitive dead-ended thought pattern, it's like you're generating stress, whereas the other you're actually generating ease, you're opening, you're vasodilating naturally, which is what we want. Yeah.
When we come back, you'll get a hit of how to make the most of your conscious daydreaming time and why you want to be in pre-action rather than reaction. We all have body goals. We all want radiant longevity. We all want to feel vibrant, lean, grounded. You can have a free body goal session. Get clear on what you want, and we'll let you know if we can help you get there. We'll also give you some free resources to get you going on your body goals. If this sounds good, go to yogahealer.com/body-goals. You'll talk to Lori, who's a yoga health coach. She helps people deeply identify what their body goals are. Often they're not what we think they are. We might think something like very superficial, like I want to lose 10 pounds, but underneath it, there's a deeper body goal. There's a deeper body goal, maybe around how you want to feel in your body, maybe what you want your body mass to be like. The losing part isn't actually what it's about at all. This can be transferred to any kind of experience. Like you might say, like, I just want to get a good night's sleep. But underneath that really is wanting to have a deep reservoir of energy in your cellular structures, feeling that deep energy in your bones. So whatever it is, will help you get in touch with that. And in the getting in touch, you actually tap into your desire for body integrity. You tap into your own body wisdom. You awaken your intuition. So it's my delight to be able to offer you these free sessions for you to identify what your body goals are in this next chapter of your life. Go to yogahealer.com/body-goals.
I'm embarrassed to say I started doing this practice because I was so terrible at meditation. And I think I have improved over the years, but I found that, instead of telling my mind, just release the thought, I said, you know what, I'm going to give you something to do instead. And that was kind of how this evolved. I said, I want you to daydream for me. Use your imagination. And I felt like I was throwing a dog a bone. I said, just go imagine some things. And if I can keep you busy imagining these things and doing these feelings for me, then I can kind of open up to this other space.
Yeah.
So for me, it's another way into almost the same space.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, that makes complete sense with the Vedic teachings of the intuitive body leading to the bliss body. Like you're tapping into intuition and it's going to access bliss. Is it a different or worse or better bliss than a pure masculine form of meditation?
I couldn't say.
I couldn't.
I'd have to be expert at both, and I'm not.
Well, yeah, and to me, it's like it's so hard to even to know when we've had such a masculine, dominant spiritual lineage as Homo sapiens, and what we're talking about is very feminine access. I'm not saying for women. Yeah. I'm just saying it's a feminine access point where we're saying like actually we can go with feeling. We can harness the power of desire. We can. Yes. Right? We can actually not need to like carve out a to-do, but we can just enjoy when it comes in, when it flows in, to be like, follow that eagle in the sky. Right. And wow. All of a sudden all these bliss chemicals are being produced and your autoimmune disorder is healing itself. Fantastic. Right. Yeah.
And that's a funny thing that happened. I don't know if you know, I think I wrote it down, but I was diagnosed with breast cancer about 18 months ago. And one of the results of that was all this work I've been doing all these years to open my heart and to really work with my emotional self. It was like, this was the time to test that, essentially. And for the first time, I really went into a state of bliss. I was able to, the cancer diagnosis just sort of broke me open, and my heart was like an overflowing cup. I mean, just, I can still feel it. I can just bring it to myself. It's that exact feeling. And I just thought it was so neat that I hadn't, meditated my way there, that it was this other kind of ramping up of experiences that led to the same end. There's multiple paths to God, right? Multiple paths to source. And this was mine. And so, yeah, I know that state of bliss. I work with it and I use it constantly now. It's all about emotion for me. Feeling is everything.
And you're a mom.
I am. I have 2 kids. Yeah.
So talk about that, with how that shows up in family life.
How I parent my kids using this?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, even just when, to me, like the difference of someone being totally stressed out with a cancer diagnosis to someone who's accessing bliss states, right? Like there's a really different home life effect going on.
I was both.
Yeah. But both, right? There's duality, there's pulsation, there's a lot of different full spectrum emotion.
I became very aware that I could go into grief, and I actually had to go into grief. Grief to me became a huge, a wellspring of change for me. I never realized. In fact, I think right after my diagnosis, I cried for 3 days straight. I just couldn't help it. Every minute I would just break out crying. And it was like a purge was going on inside my body, a purge of old blocked emotion, old blocked stuff. And I realized I wasn't crying just for the diagnosis. I was crying for every crappy thing, I hope I can say that, every crummy thing that had ever happened to me in my entire life. And it was just like I kept pulling it out, like, where is this coming from? I didn't know I had so much residue stuck in there. But eventually, it started to give and lighten up. And then I actually went through that several more times. It's several more instances of pure, deep grief, where again, even more became unleashed. So as a parent, my fear was, God, what if I die? And, I've got 2 kids in grade school, and what do I do? And that made me very aware that I had a choice in how I wanted to feel. If I went into fear, then I would get locked up. I would get unflexible, right? Because fear is such a heavy sensation. It actually pulls you inward. Grief is oddly enough an emotion that can spread out and release. Mm-hmm. You think grief is bad, but it's not. It's not the same as fear. So I had to choose: do I want to be in a state of fear, or do I want to be in a state of, I call it, embrace? What happens if I embrace this instead? Doesn't mean I want it, but I'm embracing my situation. I'm embracing what I've been given. I'm accepting it, because you can't pick sides. You can't say all the good stuff in life is the result of me co-creating and, God and all that. You have to say all of it is the result of that. All of it is there. Even cancer is there. So I said, okay, I will try to embrace this. What will happen to me? And that's how I really got through it with my kids and my family. And, so many lessons came from it. It's just unbelievable. I don't know. Have you had that experience? Have you, grieved and released and been through that? Do you have kids?
I have a daughter. She's 9. It's interesting because I'm writing this book now on awake living, and I go into tapping into wakeful dreaming, and I plummet deep into the voice of regret.
Yeah.
And to mine your desire. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's first, and then go deep into regret, because to me there's if we're not in a natural grief state with a loss or with a diagnosis or with something that's really got us on the life or death edge, right? Where we're just navigating that river. Then regret isn't one of these gateways. So I mine my regret for all it's worth. Right. And this is almost a daily practice for me, because I do things daily that I later regret. And that's the way I learn. And that's the way I process, and I go through it, and I go through the emotions of how I did something that in the future I would like that to go down differently. I would like to have grown from that experience. And there's something to me in that processing. And when I meet people that won't go into regret, and I do often in my coaching, and then also my husband's not, he learned early on not to get anywhere near regret. And so it's something I've been, with him and with my daughter, like we've had to like very much restructure family dialogue so that when we're sorry, like we can mind sorry. Like we can be so sorry because of the empathy and the
you can embrace
and
into it, go into it
and go into like, hey, no one's going to do this perfectly. Like that's not the point. The point is like, how can we at the end of the day, like learn whatever lessons are there, digest any emotions that otherwise turn into weird thought patterns that really go nowhere. That just like spin, like the yogis would say, spin into samskaras, right? And they just deepen this groove and become mental ama or toxicity that we then have to process when a big thing happens and then it comes out as grief.
Yes, exactly. So you're always in a constant state of releasing those little losses or those little fails.
I am.
Right?
I am. I mean, to me, that's part of my method. That's
part of healing for me. That's like constant healing. I mean, it's like processing instead of what do they call that when you end up just whole stuffing?
Yeah.
To use a psychological term. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. And it never gets built up into that tremendous amount because every day you're kind of clearing what's happened through the day. That's being so gentle with yourself.
It is. And I find for a lot of people who haven't processed much regret, it's very unfamiliar territory. I'll put in the show notes to this exactly that little part I wrote on how to start to tap into the power of the voice of regret, because that might be helpful. What I'd love to do, and this is so fun to talk to you, Summer. One of the things that I sense that we're both really leaning into here is this feminine power, this feminine leadership where it's very connected to emotion, very connected to desire, very connected to full process, life and death, very connected to flow. And all of that actually opens the gateway to collaborative forms of intelligence. So I'd love to just hear your, more of your cutting edge or innovative thoughts or what's next for you in terms of any of those keywords.
Where are things going? Oh my. Well, for me, I guess it is feminine because I do recognize that, we live in a dualistic universe, right? It's always hot and cold and male and female and yin and yang and so forth. Likewise, there's action and there's pre-action, there's physical and there's non-physical. For me, emotion is kind of a language. And whether it's the emotion of grief or regret, the so-called darker emotions, hate even, they're all like crayons in a box. They're all different colors and they all have different uses. Even hate has a use. I wouldn't want to stay in it, but if it's provoked in me, it's telling me do something. Do something. If it stays in you, it turns into something corrosive. So some colors you don't want to play with too long. Other colors, beautiful, bright pink, you want to play in a long time. You want to be on that love state. You want to be there. So I am always looking at my life like, how do I want to emotionally connect to this part of my life, that part of my life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it can be a feminine thing, but I think men have to be brought into this.
Oh, absolutely.
As well.
Yes.
Because in that sense, emotions are kind of neutral. We were all gifted with the same set of them. And
it's underdeveloped, right? I mean, just to jump in there, like we're all overdeveloped in the masculine power structure, the cognitive.
Totally. That's all the man brain.
Right.
I call it the king and the queen. Because the king always says, I'm the one ruling things. And the queen's like, I'm the one who's actually ruling this kingdom. But it's true. I mean, because if your mind is telling you to do something and you don't do it, you know why? Because this part of you said, I didn't feel like it. And this is the part that always actually is what you're listening to. And that's why willpower starts to lose it after time, because it's you will. And this one says, only if I agree, only if I want to, only if I desire it. Yeah.
And that's exactly where I'm at. It's like it all starts with harnessing the power of desire.
Yes.
And for so many people, men and women, we had it trained out of us so early on. And so this conversation of like, in order to be a fully empowered human being, like we need both. We need the king and the queen's underdeveloped. And so let's develop that part of ourselves, please.
Recognize her a little more. So I do it through my flow dreaming. That's my practice. And, I spend maybe 10 or 15 minutes a day going in, opening up. I look at the the non-physical as something that you can sort of write information into, or you can read information out of. Remember CDs? Remember, we used to have these round silver discs.
Yes.
You could either write information onto them or read information off of them. So I treat non-physical that way. I either am inputting information in the form of emotion and desire in flow, using this conduit of flow, or I am receiving information from it, which then becomes the receptive to me. That becomes more the feminine. And that's where I'm getting my intuition, my empathic intuition in particular. So
beautiful. And I love that distinction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Every day, that's practice. And it keeps me sane, and it keeps me whole, and keeps me from getting so filled over onto the action side of things, which, you and I obviously have the tendency to do. But it means we get our ideas and thoughts out to people, which is great. Bless my action side too.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Summer. It's just been an absolute pleasure to chat and hang.
Oh my God. That's so fast. How'd that happen?
I don't know. To be continued.
Pleasure talking to you too. I think we'd see eye to eye on a lot of things. Could go on for another hour.
All right, and that is a wrap for today. I just want to remind you, in case you missed some episodes earlier this summer, the one with Rod Stryker, that got 10,000 downloads in 2 weeks. That was a super hot episode on Dharma. I highly recommend it if you missed that one. Also, Kate O'Donnell on summer strategies, the Kate and Kate talk about our top tips for summer. That's also really good, especially if you're overheating or you're itchy or you have headaches or you just feel bloated and gross because it's hot and humid. Listen to that one too. Also, Dr. John Douillard's show on summer was also an amazing hit from our summer episode. So I just wanted to point your awareness back to those. We also have some good stuff coming up. Tara Warner's with me next week. She's, if you don't know her from Raw Divas from years back, she's just been an amazing online female leader in the wellness space. And we just have a down-home talk about raising kids and having businesses and where life goes next. So if you want a real cool conversation, that's next week. Thank you.
Yogahealer Real Life Show with Kate Stillman. Yogahealer.